And then my dad picked me up from school one day, and I said, Dad, why don't we climb the 7 summits? Well, I first asked him, Dad, do you know what the 7 summits are? And he said, barely. What about them? And then on the drive up, we kind of talked about it, and it didn't come up like that, saying like, all right, we're going to climb the 7 summits. It took a few weeks to talk about it with me, my dad, and Karen, and I told my mom about that. And she thought it was pretty cool, and she said I could do it, and she was up for supporting it. And then I made a plan. Not only did I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but I also wanted to climb all the 7 summits after a while of thinking about it. And I laid out the plan of when I wanted to do them, what age I wanted to do them, and what time of year, what years I wanted to do it. And that's how it's gotten to where I am today. So far I've done 6 of these 7 summits. And so this is all about finding and to find your goal. And this is how I found my inspiration. And one day you could be walking down your school and something might pop up on a wall, something like that, or somehow else. What's your passion? What's something you most enjoy doing? What's something you love to do every day? And then what's your dream to turn that passion into something really cool? And make sure it's big, not just something you could do in like 1 hour. Make sure it's something that it could take days, weeks, months, and years to do it, and it could take however long to do it. And then make sure it's a challenge for yourself. You really want to challenge yourself. Make it no walk in the park. Make it so that you have to break it down into small steps to do it. Your goal can be anything. It could be climbing San Jacinto out here in Palm Springs. It could be making the football team. It could be doing some simple stuff like acing the math test and taking small steps to study and ace it. And it's all yours, no one else's. And sometimes it can feel too big. There's me on Mount McKinley, and there were some parts where I would just lay down and just think, what am I doing? This mountain is way bigger than I thought. And that's how I thought on Mount Kilimanjaro too. My first mountain, I was halfway up the mountain. I was thinking, man, what am I doing here? And sometimes you can think that on while you're doing your goal too. And then you got to make it manageable as well. And you know, if it does feel too big, make it manageable so you're able to accomplish it. And now here's my goal, to climb the 7 summits. So I broke it down into smaller pieces. My goal to climb the 7 summits, I broke it down into each and every mountain. Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa, was 19,340 feet. I was 10 years old when I climbed that mountain with my dad and my stepmom Karen, and we're doing this all as a family too. So again, back to you don't have to do it alone. Your parents can do it. So we have done every one of these mountains together. And then after that, sorry, Mount Kosciuszko in Australia, 7,310 feet, was a fairly small mountain, but it was still a pretty challenging mountain. It was some heavy winds, and I climbed that when I was 10 years old in April 2007, and then following that in July 2007, when I was 11. When I was 10 years old, the day before my 11th birthday, climbed Mount Elbrus, the highest mountain in Europe, in Russia, and that's 18,510 feet. So that was the 3rd mountain. And then following that, in December 2007, when I was 11, was Mount Aconcagua, South America. I was the youngest person to have climbed that mountain. And then after that was Mount McKinley, or also known as Denali, highest mountain in North America, is in Alaska. That one's 20,320 feet, said by Everest veterans to be even harder than Mount Everest. and it was a challenge in 8 days, but it was definitely no walk in the park. And then Mount Parsons Pyramid in Indonesia. I took a year off kind of when I was years old. We went to Papua New Guinea, which if any of you guys do happen to hear about it, just know, when I say this, it is one of the coolest places. Because it's a very, it is kind of a poor country. And in this area, that it's not very much tourism or big hotels or nice beaches. It's kind of a locals only, and we were the only Western people out there. And it's really cool, you know. And we've heard stories about people who've gone out in the jungle, and there's still tribes of people, and these people were who were trekking through the jungle would be dodging arrows. So it's a very jungle kind of place, and it's a third world country as well. So but it's a very interesting place too. And then Mount Everest, 29,035 feet, highest mountain in Asia on the border of China and Nepal. It was a mountain that we climbed back in May 2010 when I was 13 years old, and I'm the youngest person so far to have climbed that mountain, and me, my dad, and Karen were the first family to have climbed Mount Everest together as well. And so those are the mountains we've climbed so far. And then up next will come Mount Vinson Massif, the highest mountain in Antarctica. We are going to be climbing that mountain this December, and it's one of the coldest mountains in the world. Antarctica is no warm place at all. In the summer when we're there, it's going to be expected to be an average of -30 and -40 degrees. So it'll be very, very cold. And it could be even colder than Everest. So that is my goal right there. And those are the steps I've kind of broken it down to. And for each mountain as well, I was able to break them down into further steps, if it's still too hard. So then we broke it down so that each camp along the way was a smaller step, and every step of the way is, all right, we're going to make it to that camp, because there's different camps that set along each of the mountains. So we're not totally focused on the summit at the one time, but that's our ultimate goal right there. And then we're thinking, all right, we're going to make it to this one camp. All right, now then we celebrate our victory and say, like, all right, we did it. Now our next goal is this camp. And then eventually we do end up summiting the mountain. So you always gotta keep your big goal in mind, even though you don't have to. You just keep it in mind and know that everything you do is going to contribute to it. And for Kilimanjaro, what I had to do to research for it was, which route are we going to take? Because there's different ways how you can get to the top. So we're thinking, which way are we going to do it? Which time of year as well? I said, okay, let's do it in July over summer break, so I won't have to worry about schoolwork. And it was a good time of year as well. And then traveling and visas, you know, what kind of flight we're going to take, where we're going to go to. And then fundraising was how we were gonna get to the mountain, because climbing is not a cheap sport at all. It takes money for permits, flights, and visas and such. And then I wanted to research more about the culture of the mountain, of where it's at, the kind of people, the language, and the money they use, and the food they eat. So that was the kind of stuff that I had to research before the climb.